while most people are switching off over Christmas, sport doesn't stop. Athletes, coaches, support staff, event crews, officials, and volunteers are still training, traveling, or setting up competitions behind the scenes. So, Laura, across sport, do people actually get Christmas off, or is that mostly a myth?
With everything that we know about the work that goes into being an elite athlete, it has to be a myth.
Yeah. So, where I come from, in my little patch of the world with my little family, Christmas to me has represented a few core elements. One is tradition. We have things that we do each year wherever we are for Christmas. The
Yep.
other is rest, this sense of switching off, checking in with one another. And the third is family and loved ones. So whether they're close friends, the family we choose, or family we're born with, I feel like that tradition, rest, and family is what I think of when I think of Christmas.
That's fair. I think of it a little bit differently. So I
Yep.
think of Christmas more in the terms of just as sport. I guess I've grown up in a house that watches sport on Christmas Day, lives
Yep.
and breathes sport every other day of the year. So when I think of what's involved in Christmas Day, there's the festivities, of course, that I think are shared with everyone, but there's also the hectic sports schedules that players have. Is it their rest day? Is it another training day? The work uh, for broadcasters and volunteers
Yeah.
and all of this background work that goes into making that game day that we see on the TV happen.
Yep. If we think about that Christmas season for sport globally, let's talk about it globally in different contexts, different sports. But for a match to be played, whichever sport it is, whether we're talking about tennis, comes to life when the Australian summer heats up,
Yep.
and we're talking about NFL in the US, and we're talking about soccer games in Europe,
Well, we can't
and
go past cricket in Australia. I feel
we
like that is the lifeblood of Christmas in Australia.
talking about each of those events, if you talk about what it takes to get those players on the field for that match to be run, we're also talking about a lot of people,
Yeah.
like a breath. So
Mm.
from the umpires through to the volunteers that put the place together before people arrive. Have you worked Christmas before in sport, in tennis?
Almost every Christmas in
Have
sport.
you?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
you look forward to it. I think working in sport and being passionate about sport, you always look forward to whatever sporting event is coming up.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not necessarily you're looking forward to it because it's Christmas, because I'm a big family person. I'd love to spend Christmas with my family, but I'm
Yep.
also looking forward to this big exciting event coming up. And
Yeah.
yeah, usually in tennis, that's all centered around the Brisbane International,
Yep.
which is great fun. But there's a lot of people there, as you mentioned, and a lot of people that don't typically work in sport. You have food vendors and you have
Right.
medical team on standby, and you have all of these people from outside of sport that are also coming together on Christmas to make these things happen, to make these events
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. Because while we pick it up as a Boxing Day event, or like the Brisbane International, for example, that really the public starts to join in the early days of January, the behind the scenes is live over Christmas. Like Christmas Day, people are doing something there.
Absolutely. It's like any event. You have the work that goes into the actual event itself. You
Yeah.
have months of planning and weeks of preparation. And in sport as well, depending on what kind of sport, tennis, for example, you may have before the Brisbane International, you may have the qualifying events. So
Yeah.
there's players competing in and around that time of Christmas to be able to compete in the main draw when the event starts.
Which means coaches are working,
Right.
physios are working, officials
Hmm.
are working,
Yep.
volunteers are on call. As you said, medical staff, they've got to be fed, they need to be hydrated. Someone needs to be making sure that fields of play are clean and ready for use. That amenities are available. So there's cleaners there. There's so many operational layers to the
Yeah.
provision of this. I think my original curiosity with this was really about asking whether athletes can take a break. And I think we can agree it runs much deeper than that, because while athletes are not resting, someone else is working too, whether it's their physio team, whether it's their development staff, whether it's their coaches or people putting on a particular event. which we as the patrons can enjoy. If we go just to the athletes first and foremost, we accept that if they're not taking a break, many others are not either. Can an athlete actually take a break at Christmas though? The way that I explain my Christmas, that looks like rest and family and tradition and tapping out of many other things.
Well, I wonder if some athletes can. And
Yeah.
I wonder if it's dependent on the sport and the demands of their sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sports, when we talk about Christmas, we think of the ones we mentioned earlier. We think of the NFL, so the American football, think of the American basketball, the NBA, tennis, cricket, and these other sports, darts if you're in the
Yeah.
UK. So
Yeah.
we think about those athletes and whether or not it's appropriate for them to be taking a break during this Christmas period, or if that's a
Mm.
detriment to their overall performance during these Christmas events. Whereas when we think about other sports that are outside of those main or the main sports that are happening around the Christmas period, do they get a break? And that's where I wonder if they do, or knowing the demands it takes on the body to be a professional athlete, whether or not they need to continue training anyway,
Yeah.
regardless of whether there's an event there or not.
Yeah, you layer it, right? So if we talk about the professional, someone who's being paid to do this, we could probably take a position without deeply knowing individual situations, but we could take a position that if we talk about cricket and you're playing cricket at a level where you're turning up for a Boxing Day match, then contractually that is one of the contractual obligations in your
Yeah.
contract. Likely, right? It's just you will play cricket on that day. That's a thing that you'll do. And then there's a
Yeah.
sacrifice around that for those players' families. But I also know players who would say to you, it's probably their calendar highlight too, to be able to play on that day because
Yeah.
atmospherically, there's something that goes on in the stadiums on those days where people are, like me, switched off to lots of other things in their mode of rest with the people they love. And this is a tradition for them. And then they are a loud and engaged fan on the day. And they're the ones that we want, right? The spectators we want watching us play when we're contractually bound to turn up on Boxing Day and do the thing. So,
Yeah.
but if you layer your way down, you've got the athlete then who's climbing, so potentially elite, semi-elite. They're climbing, and every rest day to them feels like a setback. So, they're pushing hard through Christmas, and then you've got the amateur. You've got the levels of like our kids playing sport or adults playing sport, but at an amateur level, where this is a total shutdown for any winter sport. They're a long way checked out. And if
Yeah.
you're playing a summer sport, it's unlikely that during the weeks of Christmas into New Year that you'll be doing anything. So it's entirely on you what you want to do with it. But I think you do have to kind of separate. You got to pull it apart and work out, which level of sport are we talking about and which sports are we talking about to truly determine how impacted people are. But I don't think we can measure whether it's a good or a bad thing. Because I would say, as I said before, I would say some athletes look at this as a calendar highlight.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to the individual. And as you say, there's different demands on you as an athlete depending on which level you are competing in.
Yeah.
I think as well when we think about those athletes who are competing during this holiday period, there's also a big culture, as you mentioned. People are. It's part of the culture in the US to sit down and watch the football
Mm,
on Christmas Day. It's part
mm,
of the culture in Australia, as I mentioned earlier, to sit down on Boxing Day and watch the cricket. It's part of the culture to be watching these sports during this period of time. So then if
mm.
we look at it from the other side for the athlete and those athletes that are looking forward to playing and being part of that culture, they get to be part of something far bigger and far greater than
Right.
themselves and far bigger and far greater than their typical tournament even or game or match or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be something exciting for a lot of athletes, for a lot of players to be able to say, hey, I was a part of delivering that today.
Yeah.
And I think that
And
can also go to help players who would otherwise be opposed to playing on Christmas to say,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
well, it's such a great vibe, it's such a great atmosphere. I'm happy to be here.
But we don't discount that they're still choosing, right? They're choosing the family time
Absolutely. Yeah.
and what a potentially different tradition might look like
Yeah.
versus being there and performing for us as the people who take sport as entertainment.
Absolutely. We also can't discount as well that not everybody is celebrating Christmas Day. There
Yeah,
are a multitude of different religions and a
yeah,
multitude of different cultures in the various countries across the world. And so playing on and over Christmas Day and that holiday period is going to affect people differently. And it's going
yeah,
to be, yeah.
entirely. And that's without contemplating Olympians during Olympic qualifying years. Like
Yeah.
I would guess that Christmas Day is another day in the calendar of an Olympian in an Olympic qualifying year. They're out there, they're training, they're watching their meals, they're doing everything to stay on targets.
Do they get a cheat day, do you reckon, for
I
Christmas?
mean, it could be this very conversation that defines why you and I are not Olympians.
Yes, it might be. Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm
We would award
already
them.
buying the turkey. So, yeah.
I mean, if they asked, I'd deliver. It's fine. It's not a big deal. But might be what sets us apart. I don't know. Could just speculating here. It kind of prompts that question though. Is a break really ever a break if your program comes with you? If that program follows you home, it follows you for Christmas Day, it follows you wherever you are.
Can you afford it to be?
Can you
Yeah.
afford it to be? Yeah, yeah. We talked before about the global contrasts, but I think what we're learning in, as you say, in the US, if you're sitting down and you're watching the NFL on Christmas Day, and we know that there's this real prestige associated with NBA games that travel across the Christmas period, um, can can we be to blame as consumers who have asked for these festive sports as our entertainment?
I don't think so.
It's not our
It
fault.
it's not our fault. We're just here to enjoy it. If they wanna schedule it, then sch and they've been scheduling matches on Christmas Day in the NFL, I think it predates the 1980s, somewhere in there,
Yeah,
and I believe there was some kind of contention during the '70s where they had games showing, and they took a break because of a really long match that went on over Christmas Day, and then
right.
years later, they brought it back, and I think that was towards the end of the 1980s. Don't
Yeah.
quote me here on exact dates. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point is that this has a very rich and deep history
Mm,
in particularly
mm,
the US, for football and for the NBA, and I'm sure it's the same across the world for the various sports. So I think as consumers, it has become part of what we expect to be put out on Christmas. And part of, okay, if this is what we expect, then there has to be a lot of ability for broadcasters to make some serious money
mm.
during Christmas. There's a huge entertainment value here when we talk
Absolutely.
about dollars, not just culture.
Yep,
And so,
yep.
not having games across the holiday period, this particular holiday period, would almost work negatively towards your channel, your company for not advertising, or your
Right,
sport as being a
right.
great opportunity to bring some revenue, to bring some money into your sport.
Because the consumers are asking for it. We're
That's right.
saying, "Yep, we want to consume sport during going back to my first point, our rest period. We're
Yeah,
resting." And
yeah,
there's a nostalgia, there's a tradition for many, many families associated with these types of holiday season events, and maybe for the athletes, for some of them, it's potentially their peak performance windows.
yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So while we're stuffing turkey into our faces on Christmas Day, think about the performance window, because for some people it might not look the same.
Maybe. Although I've spoken to quite a number of athletes over the Christmas period, and they definitely still are eager to stuff their faces with as much food as possible and enjoy the festivities, and then
Yeah.
maybe just do an extra few kilometers worth of running later to burn it off.
But also there's that brain to body relationship of rest as well, where you can actually check out and join others who are living what looks like normal when you're an athlete who feels like you're not living in the normal. You're living a schedule that controls you and has all of those components to it, whether it's, food based or training schedule based or recovery based, whatever it is. Sometimes the element of normal is what will boost you into your next part of your training period. Just a little dose of it.
That's true. I do wonder how much autonomy athletes have to be able
Yeah.
to make these choices.
Mm.
Um, you know, can they train? Can't they train? Is it just them?
Yeah, yeah. You have to wonder if I'm playing on Boxing Day, there's a high chance I'm with those people the day before. It's
That's
kind of
right.
how turning up for sporting events works, right? So, and these people have families and I'm sure many, many other commitments happening around them while they're still while we're still demanding them to perform at their best and entertain us. It's a really, really interesting time of the year. I think, as we started on before, there's also that invisible workforce that sits
Mm,
behind them. Right? So you touched on the Brisbane International as one of the examples. I've been to the Brisbane International many, many times and experienced those games, experienced the atmosphere on the ground, experienced the absolute, reward of lots of people's efforts throughout a Christmas period. Talk to me about the realities of that. I get the good bit. Talk to me about the realities that you had.
well, there's lots of good bits. First of all, it's a
Yeah.
fantastic event.
Yeah.
Everyone should definitely make if you're in and around Brisbane and Queensland, Australia, you should definitely try and make it down to the Brisbane International just after Christmas.
Yep.
I think it's around the 4th that it kicks off.
Fourth
Anyway,
gen.
I'm getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
Uh, but there are so many people that go into making that happen all the way in the lead up to to the main day,
Mm,
opening day. And
mm,
I say opening day with some hesitancy because there are qualifying events that happen before that. So you
mm,
have players, you have officials at the courts, you have transport, so the people who are transporting players to and from hotels. You have all of these inner workings that happen in the background that people don't see.
mhm,
And what's involved in making sure that the event takes place is hundreds of volunteers as well. People that aren't being paid for their time. They are doing it
mm,
for the love of the sport, the
mm,
love of being part of a major event.
mm.
And so that will happen up into a week or two beforehand. And then you've got planning before that as well. So, for a lot of people that are working at events like the Brisbane International, there is no rest. In fact, a lot of the working day will be their longest working days for the entire calendar year.
Yeah.
And so that in itself brings about it a culture of togetherness or camaraderie that happens behind the scene because we're all in it together. You know, we're
Yeah.
all there during the Boxing Day. We're all there during these moments, and y- it's a happy event anyway. But there's something extra special about saying Merry Christmas to people as you walk by while you're setting up
Mm,
the various little elements that go into it. And so
yeah.
it's a really beautiful thing to witness.
Such a cool perspective because I think as an outsider, you can quite quickly be the person who goes, "Oh, they're sacrificing a lot." But for some people, again, like the athlete playing potentially a Christmas Day or Boxing Day match, this might be their sporting event highlight of their calendar year is to be
Yeah.
involved in this event for the very reason that there's a joy that exists around the season anyway, and sharing it as you used to say, and then perpetuating it to others with a Merry Christmas or a passing by. I think you're correct. I think there's a very different perspective you can take for it, which is to say, actually, some people genuinely wait for this. Do you think social media has any sway or influence in the way that athletes may perceive whether they've been ripped off of a Christmas or been able to enjoy it?
I think social media has a lot of sway in a lot. uh, I think that as an athlete, particularly as someone who is a professional athlete, I think a lot of the times you learn to only focus on yourself. What is good for me and what is right for me. There's going to be a lot of voices and outside voices who have their say in your development, and then social media is just another voice, right? So I think you learn as an athlete to try and shut out those voices and say, okay, I don't need that. I'm doing what's right and best for me, and I have
Mm,
my team around me that are going to help me to achieve that. And
mm,
learning to shut out those voices is so important because you imagine going to you're contractually required to be at a Christmas game, and you see a social media post of all of your friends out having a Christmas party and you can't be there because you are contractually required to show up for this event, or you're going to be feeling an array of emotions and an array of emotions that you didn't need to let in. Right? That's not going to add positively to your day. That's only going to impact you negatively. If we can shut out some of those voices, then maybe we can appreciate the experience of the game on that day for what it is. We can just enjoy being there without all those outside voices coming in. So
So true.
I
So
think it's
true.
important to set boundaries for yourself as an athlete, and I think social media is one of them.
Yeah. What you've covered, though, highlights the point that they're not the athletes that are participating in sports during this season, are not new to sacrifice.
That's
You know,
right.
they well and truly know what sacrifice looks like. They've seen those events take place around them and not being able to participate where family and friends are enjoying something they can't be at. So they've played along before. The difference I think about this time of year is we become quite nostalgic or reflective in December, where we're
Yeah.
looking on the year and we're planning for sort of that turn of the calendar into January. And I do think that's where it hits a little harder for some
Yeah.
people. And if I'm an athlete, the social media layer is the one that demands me to be grateful for this
Mm.
nonetheless. Be grateful despite the sacrifice, despite the festivity that's happening that you're not included in, despite the fact that you're participating. Be grateful that you're the person who you and I spoke about, Laura, about, the pillars that need to line up for an athlete to reach success. Um, be grateful that you got all of those and show gratitude in your social media presence rather than a bitterness that suggests you'd rather be somewhere else. And we'll watch for the gratitude. We'll be looking for it.
That's such a huge point. I think just exactly what you said there with be grateful. And that's not to say you're not feeling grateful. That's just to
Mm.
say that you don't have an option but to show complete gratefulness
Right.
for your situation. You're not
100%.
allowed to exhibit anything else, display anything else.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
and I think even from an athlete's perspective, let's put the human back in it. From one Christmas to the next, our lives change, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of how good you are at any sport, regardless of what contracts you hold or don't hold, there are reasons that we may want to be among people that we love during a Christmas season from one year to the next.
Yeah.
It might be a family calling, that we might just have this last Christmas with someone, or it might be new additions to the family that you think Christmas is different for me now. But
Mm.
again, the lens that we're viewing the athletes through says, "Hmm, but also we came to watch." So
Yeah.
so entertain me, right? And do it with a smile on your face because that's the gratefulness. That's the piece we're looking for.
That is definitely one of the things that I find difficult, even as a consumer, even just watching the games. And I'm thinking, I know that that athlete has a young family and this is going to be their first Christmas. But I also know that they're only recently in this professional league and they
Correct.
probably don't have the money for them to be flying to this other country and have their family come across.
Right.
And so that definitely, there's always a moment when I see athletes like that and I'm thinking, that's rough. That's got to be really, really hard to then go, you know what? You contractually, like you're a professional player now, you have to play your best,
And
or
the
you
reality
this is
is
your wild card and you
yep.
have to play your best because the rest of your entire future career depends on the outcomes
Use
of
it.
this. Yeah,
Use it.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And all the while the athlete is already spinning in the realities of length of tenure. Will only be an athlete at this level for
Yeah.
so long before this is stripped from me anyway. So glorify, maximize, be so involved,
Yeah.
engrossed in everything that this is with a smile on your face for gratitude.
Yeah.
I wonder then, what do you think a healthy sport Christmas looks like?
I I am for Christmas sport to an extent.
Yeah.
I I think that there is a healthy way to do it, and I think it doesn't come down necessarily to the athletes, but the organizations and that are scheduling these games
Mm,
and how they deliver them. And that might mean simply as free flights for the athlete and their immediate family to attend the game. It might just be uh, ability to take half the day off and have the game or the match in the evening, or
mhm,
vice versa. I think
mhm.
there's a way to look after athlete well-being within still televising sport and major sporting events. But I
Yeah.
think that oftentimes the athlete is not being at the center of the considerations when they are planning Christmas and other major holiday events. What's been taken into consideration first, I really believe should be them.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. If we're not hearing that loud and clear through our athlete advocacy groups and, the real rising of athletes and former athletes asking for better conditions, we're probably not listening. I
Yeah.
think, Laura, the summary for me is, when we talk about the season of Christmas, the festivities of December, we have to remember that for athletes, rest isn't a weakness. It's part of
Mm.
their overall performance.
Yeah.
So true. So true. I've loved this discussion. Before we go, I think we owe it to all of our guests that we've put under the spotlight to do our own little this or that. We're going to do a Christmas athlete themed this or that segment.
Absolutely.
We go and
Let's
do it.
do it. Yep, let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to go first. Laura, as an athlete, do you train on Christmas morning or Christmas afternoon?
Christmas morning before the big meal.
Right. See, and then you go, well, I hope you don't have little people in your house because Christmas morning is full of squeals
Yeah.
and in raw delight. So I don't really know the answer. Maybe you're getting up at 3 because the kids are up at 4. Let's be honest.
Different life stages. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Giving presents or receiving presents?
I am an awkward receiver of presents, but I love to give. Love, love, love. I'm
Does
a giving presents
everyone
person
feel
all the
awkward about receiving presents? Because that is such an
I
awkward
don't know if
moment.
you've children lately. They do not.
Maybe not for kids.
Laura, a home Christmas or an away Christmas?
Home Christmas. Definitely.
Yep.
All right, big one here, very topical. Watching Christmas sport or playing sport with others on Christmas.
If we're talking Christmas Day, I think we're playing sport.
I love that. Some of the best memories made.
So true. So true. As a gift, new sports gear or cash?
That's actually tough because I would say new sports gear unless they don't buy the right sports. And I'm kidding.
It's personal. It's so personal, right?
It is personal. Depends. Is it general sports gear or for the sport that I'm competing in aggressively?
Because there's no other way. It's aggressive or not at all.
That's right. That's right.
I love it.
All right. Strict meal plan or Christmas cheat plate?
We covered this. We covered this.
Yeah.
Remember, I was feeding the Olympian.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas cheat plate. Definitely.
That's fair.
And Laura, would you switch off completely for Christmas or do low-level check-ins?
Look, type A personality. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't low-level check-ins.
So is there a C that says nothing changes?
That's right.
I love it.
All right. Last one. Santa hat at work or no Christmas vibe at all?
Santa hat, flat out, all the time. I have boxes of Christmas decorations that are wearable. All of them. They are hats, they are jewelry, they are clothes. We're going all in. If I'm working, you're going to know that it's Christmas.
I cannot believe that we're not wearing. I've just realized we're not wearing anything Christmassy. We absolutely.
I know someone who could surely edit a little hat on me. I know they can.
Okay. You really think my skills are so far above what they are? Let them grow. Next year.
So fun. So fun. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone. When you're watching sport this Christmas, remember someone else gave up theirs so you could enjoy your Christmas sport. While sport might feel like part of our Christmas traditions, it's worth remembering the people behind it, the athletes, the staff, the officials, volunteers, and families who make it happen. If you're working in sport this Christmas, we see you and we thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow and subscribe to stay on the Almost Pro journey. And if you've got a story to share or know someone who does, we would love to hear from you. Head over to almostpropodcast.com or our social media pages at Almost Pro Podcast to get in touch. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.